there's so much opportunity for naturopathic medicine and functional medicine and preventative healthcare, but it will require us as practitioners to be brave enough to step away from the way it has always been done and into this whole huge frontier of possibility.
Welcome to Personalized by Vitamin Lab, the show where we dive deep into the world of personalization in healthcare. I'm your host, Dr. David Deiser. Please remember that the following discussion is for educational purposes only, and it's not intended to diagnose or treat any disease. Speak with your healthcare practitioner first before integrating anything that you learned today. Join us as we explore the remarkable stories, breakthroughs, and possibilities that come with the pursuit of personalized healthcare. Welcome back to Personalized by Vitamin Lab. I'm your host, Dr. David Deiser, and today on the show, I spoke with Dr. Meghan Walker, Entrepologist, recovering naturopathic doctor, and powerhouse behind Clinician Business Labs, a movement that bridges health, high performance, and entrepreneurship. Meghan has made it her mission to help clinician entrepreneurs align their income with their impact. In this episode, we dive into what it really takes to build and lead an impact-driven healthcare business, balancing clinical care with visionary leadership, supporting associates without burnout, and innovating in a space that's often stuck in old models. Meghan shares disruptive insights, practical wisdom, and the kind of clarity that only comes from years in both the exam room and the boardroom. If you're a health practitioner with a purpose and a pulse for entrepreneurship, you're going to want to hear this. Enjoy our episode with Dr. Meghan Walker. Welcome back to Personalized by Vitamin Lab. I'm here with Dr. Meghan Walker. Meghan, nice to see you. Nice to meet you.
So nice to be here, David. It's a pleasure.
I'm really excited to talk to you. Like I was mentioning prior to us actually starting the show, I've been following your career for quite a while. I'm a clinic owner myself. I'm always trying to learn how to be a better one. And the resources that are out there, generally not specific to my industry, generally not specific to the size of business that I have, yet all your resources are. And that makes me super excited to actually get a chance to chat with you. And like I say to most guests, like I use this show as like my own personal development, own personal growth. And I feel like a lot of clinicians are in the same spot as me. And so we get a ton of value out of it. So happy to meet you. Happy to have you on. Knowing kind of where I am and, thinking back to how far you've come, could you tell me about your journey a little bit in healthcare? Like I know you've done so much. Why don't you share a little bit with the audience and just fill us in about how you actually got to where you are right now?
Yeah, for sure. Well, I would say even I wear a few different hats and definitely identify both as a passionate advocate of healthcare and medicine and preventative health as a naturopathic doctor. But I think what even precedes that is my journey as an entrepreneur. And I think that's particularly relevant to the path that I've kind of followed in this piece. And it starts back when I was in high school and I had a summer job. I worked at a marina. We were up north for the summer, as like so many Canadians have the opportunity to do. And I was fired from my first and only job. I had a manager and she and I didn't see eye to eye. And now in hindsight, I'm like, oh, she set this up. But anyway, she tasked me with the horrendous job of cleaning the mechanics washroom, which ironically, I went on to start a cleaning company. But I walked into this room and I was well aware that this particular space in the marina had probably not been cleaned in, and I'm guessing 40 years. It was horrible. I closed the door again. I was like, I'm just, we just hit a personal standard. She's like, no, it's just not working. It's just not working here. And I was like, okay. So I got home and I told my dad what happened. He's like, no problem. Totally understand. And also you're not just going to sit around all summer long, and you're definitely not going to sit on the dock all summer. And I looked at him and I looked at the lake and I went, I sure will. I'm going to figure this out. And so as I looked out at the lake, and I've shared this story before, but I looked out at the lake, I saw all these little cottages on the island, and I had this little tin boat. And I was like, I bet the people on the islands who work so hard to be up here this summer as well would love to have their cottages cleaned by someone who can come to them. They don't have to go to the town dock and pick someone up and find someone in town. And so long story short, I made flyers, I put them out on the dock. And within a week, I had a full roster of island-based cottagers who all wanted their cottages cleaned. And then the next summer, I hired 11 of my friends and we expanded the number of cottages that we served. And
Nice.
I promptly sat on the dock and looked at my dad and I was like, this is what we call having our cake and eat it too. And he was like, kudos to you. But for me, what it did is it ignited this understanding and this fire of like, oh my gosh, like entrepreneurship is so amazing. When you have clarity on what you want, you get to just reverse engineer and build something that is in alignment with your lifestyle and your values. And like I said, like I built a cleaning business. I actually love to clean. I just had standards around how that was going to get deployed. And so fast forward, I had an interest in naturopathic medicine and health in general. But the thing about a naturopathy that was of such interest to me was the fact that I could pair it with my love of entrepreneurship. And I really saw this as this opportunity to kind of pair healthcare with new and innovative models, which weren't going to happen in the traditional system, certainly not with the speed and pace and pivot that I was interested in exploring. And so I left school. I started a clinic alongside my colleague, Dr. Erin Wiley, and it just kind of unfolded. And I've had a series of different businesses. I worked in that clinic for 5 years, but I had a real clarity point around this idea that I had a core belief in healthcare. And that was when people had their health, they can change the world. When a CEO has access to his health in full capacity or her health in full capacity, they show up. They show up differently in the work that they do, and often that is like life transforming work for their employees and for their, I don't know, whatever their service or product they're putting out into the world. Or if the teacher is able to be fully well, she shows up for her kids. The mother, it carries on from there. And so every juncture I've had in terms of new opportunities that I can take on, it always had to make sure that it was amplifying and satisfying this core foundational belief that when people have their health, they can change the world. And so the evolution of my career from that first initial clinic to having some micro practices to tech platforms and clinician business labs is this work going to enable us to amplify access to better health? Is this work going to enable practitioners to be stronger in the work that they are doing so that more people can have access to our incredibly powerful system of medicine? So it was a combination of like clarity around the type of work that I wanted to deploy, this love of entrepreneurship, and really being very intentional around what I wanted my work in healthcare to be able to facilitate on a larger scale.
Wow, cool. Good for you for being able to reflect on it too, and just to know exactly, this is why I'm here, and also this is why people come see me, because they know that I'm so focused on this. I love that. What was your turning point where, you kind of thought, okay, now I can support practitioners. Now I can help them do this same thing.
Yeah, my introduction to this was right when I was still in school. I did my externship actually in rural South Africa. So I ran a youth environmental charity, and we ran in Canada, in Australia, and in South Africa. And so we had this really unique opportunity we kind of cultivated in some remote villages in South Africa. And there was two things we did. One, we did really essentially primary care for these villages, which was an incredible experience. But the second thing we facilitated were workshops for practitioners. And in facilitating these workshops, we'd have 40 different people who'd be in the room, all from different jurisdictions in, let's say, the Northwest province of South Africa. And it really struck me that, wow, if we want to disseminate change within healthcare quickly, it's not going to come because, my little clinic does something innovative with patients and hopefully I publish it and hopefully someone reads it and hopefully I get on a stage somewhere to talk about it. We're just going to put a bunch of practitioners in a room and model something out for them that they can all go deploy at once. So it just enabled us to do it at scale. So it was the first time I really saw that, where I went, wait a second, this traditional way of getting the word out to practitioners is really, really slow. It's why it takes 20 years sometimes for really smart evidence-based shifts in care delivery to actually get fully deployed in a clinical model, because we're really slow in how we deliver those shifts in knowledge. So it actually started there, right when I was still in school. But fast forward, I worked in practice, and our business, like everybody's, was like slow to get started, but we had really strong principles to like get to where we wanted to go. And I was quickly having colleagues reach out to me and say, hey, how are you doing this? Like, what are your thoughts on this? And I call this my accidental business because it just reached a point it was sort of inefficient to do like a pick your brain coffee lunch really quickly. And I said, listen, here's the Zoom link, the first Thursday of every month. Anyone can just come. We're just going to talk strategy related to, it wasn't formal. It wasn't a business. No one had to pay for it. It was just literally like, Share it with your friends. And then everyone had the same questions. And so we just created our first program, and we released it and people bought it. They got outcomes. And we're like, oh, this is amazing. Why don't we do it again and do it again? And then finally we realized we could just up the ante in terms of the sophistication. And we ran our first live event and introduced our first like big mastermind to principally the Canadian market. And that was a real turning point for us where we're like, okay, now let's like really put our head around how we're going to scale this and where there's voids in the market in terms of people's education and support in implementing. And Clinician Business Labs went from this like thing I did on the first Thursday of every month by accident into something that was much more intentional for us as both a business and as a tool to change the landscape of care.
Vitamin Lab revolutionizes personalized supplements, empowering health practitioners to create tailored supplement formulations that address each patient's unique needs. Bring personalized health to your practice and choose from over 200 professional-grade ingredients to create vitamin formulas that improve patient adherence and result in tangible outcomes. All ingredients are sourced from the world's most trusted suppliers, and Vitamin Lab provides hands-on support to help you formulate and launch personalization to your patients. Say hello to a new era of personalized supplement solutions. Go to getvitaminlab.com/personalized to save $100 off your first formula.
Oh, that's so cool. Way to go. That's the best way to start a business. It's just that the demand is already there. People really want this. But also, you know, it's in line with kind of your vibe, this ability to, or this desire to have a broad impact on people's health and wellness. Now, bringing your systems and tools to all these practitioners is accomplishing that. Way to go.
Yeah, thanks.
That's so cool. You know, we're in the same place here where it's like I was obsessed with VO2 max and aerobic fitness and helping athletes figure out where they're limited so that they're not wasting their time training. And one day I just kind of fell into this device that could be purchased and used in clinic. And then people started to come to see me because I was obsessed with it. And now I've got 6 people doing it. It's just like so cool.
Yeah.
How that serendipity kind of works.
That obsession matters though. And I'll say this to practitioners a lot, and I know we're going to get into this, but we kind of have to be obsessed with this. And when we're obsessed with it, we're willing to do things that take us outside our comfort zone. Like I know a lot of us are challenged to like hop on Instagram or hop on social media, and they're like, oh, what are my colleagues going to say? And I want you to tap into the obsession side, because when you're like, this is life-changing, this is going to absolutely, if you feel confident that what you do in your work as a clinician will change people's lives, then why are we giving more power to what our colleagues might think of us than our capacity to influence change in the world? So I think obsession is actually a really great word, and the energy behind obsession is awesome because it's one of the things we kind of need in this day and age. Like if you're going to step back and be scared, if your content's going to be vanilla, if you're like everything is just like, well, I just got to play it all super safe all the time because the regulatory boards are going to round me up and throw me in regulatory jail, and we just can't reach people. There's so many forces in the world trying to capture the attention of our ideal clients, offering something substandard, lacking evidence, like not nearly as progressive as the systems of medicine that we interact with. Like we have to be obsessed and be willing to sort of take a stand and step outside our comfort zone on behalf of the power of our medicine to really be heard in today's day and age. So I applaud you on that. I think it's part of the energy of what we need to bring to the table.
Oh, totally. Kind of like our elders. Oh, they're obsessed. They can speak. Like they can get out there. You know, it's a challenge, right? Because like in British Columbia here, you know, the advice is always like, you know, double your prices and do group visits. Like that's the only way to have a big impact and also to be able to live in a city.
Right.
And it's tough. It's really tough to make that leap. Your confidence has to be so incredibly high to do that kind of thing. But I think, you know, having this, you know, focus on mission, vision, values, like it helps. But centering yourself on it every single day is, you know, something that you just have to kind of check the box. You have to do it. And you have to remember, oh yeah, this is my thing. I'm obsessed with this. What are the tactics around that? Like how do you coach people, teach people, you know, kind of the tactical side of impact in clinic? What's the strategy here?
Do you mean in terms of the growth of their business, in terms of like getting into the mindset of being willing to step outside their comfort zone? Like which side of it?
How about communicating it? How about communicating mission, vision, values? Like, you know, so most of us got into this because someone in our family benefited from this medicine or some version of it, right?
Sure.
And now we're saying to our associates, remember, this is transformative. You're obsessed with this. You love it. You just invested your whole life in this.
Mm-hmm.
How do we ask them to communicate that to the public? What's the tactically around this? What do you think?
Yeah. Well, I mean, first of all, if we're gonna step into a communication strategy that is fueled by obsession, then we're also just gonna have to like drop the dead weight of the limiting beliefs around those pieces. Like before we can get someone to step up on stage with enthusiasm, like we really need to do the work around like, let's address the self-worth things that are like holding you back. What are the stories you've been telling yourself around like why we can't get out there and talk about this? Like, are we scared of regulation? And that is a legitimate piece. I want to throw it on the table and acknowledge it because otherwise it's an elephant in the room. So are we worried about that and we just don't know, we don't know enough about the lines? So we're kind of scared to just like pull out any color because we don't want to color outside the line. So I think that level of awareness is really important. I think on the communication side too, people don't know what the strategy needs to look like. What is a marketing strategy? I turn on Instagram. What am I supposed to say? Like, what is the nature of that communication? So there's layers of nuance that I think need to be addressed. If I I'm going to just throw it out there. If I talk to most practitioners and say, tell me about who your dream client is, they don't know how to answer that. I get demographic information, I get a little bit, but they can't tell me the essence of those people and what moves the needle for those individuals. So there's some background information that I think is a prerequisite to showing up with that level of passion. And then when we talk about it from a strategic perspective and then down into the tactics of it, I really divide marketing into 3 particular areas for practitioners. And the 3 areas, just to label them, and I'll circle back to examples. We've got what we'll call in the marketing world, these top of funnel, these outward facing things that we are doing and engaging in so that our message intersects with our ideal client. So we are well past a time and place where we can be everything to everyone. So we can get into this, but this notion of like, I'm a generalized practitioner who can see everybody, even that needs some framing so we can talk about that. So our messaging needs to be on point. We need to understand what the things are that our ideal client wants, not the things we want to give them, but what do they really want? What outcomes are they looking for? We talk about all of that in what I call top of funnel conversations. That's like what I'm doing right now, being on a podcast, that's showing up on social media, that's giving a talk at the running room. It's all of the above. It's the outward facing things where people have an opportunity to interact with our brand. And when we know who our ideal client is, we can start to develop a strategy around what our messaging needs to look like. Then we need to bring them into our world. So it's not sufficient just to talk on social media. So if we talk about conversion points, one thing I want everyone to know about marketing is that the goal of your marketing is not to get more patients. I know you're like, yes, it is, Megan. I'm like, just bear with me. The goal of each tactic that you deploy in your marketing is to get people to take the next step in their interaction with you. No one goes from step 1 to step 10. And that's been a huge issue in our industry is we try things, but what we all think the expected outcome should be is more patient bookings. Mm-hmm. And if we don't understand that the outcome we're looking for is just the next step, and if we don't actually earmark what the 4 steps are we want people to take before they book, then we're just endlessly disappointed that not everyone is interested in this outcome. I was on Social Meg for a month and I didn't get a single patient from it. Except the goal of social media is not to get patients. The goal of social media is to get people to like your brand enough that they're willing to exchange something even more valuable, and that's their email address. Mm-hmm. We want to bring them into our fold. So one of the tools and tactics that we recommend on the backside of your outward-facing marketing is to invite people into a related training. We typically teach people how to do this in the form of an evergreen webinar. Mm. People are advanced, we'll talk about sideways sales letters, but we want them to do this because this is an opportunity for you to teach on your area of expertise. It's an opportunity for you to smile and interact and share who you are as a person. It's an opportunity for you to showcase your authority. So all those things that we talked about as being really important, it's an opportunity for you to not be vanilla. We have a whole strategy around what that webinar can look like. This is a 20-minute training that is forever available to people. That's the next step. It is a massive success if we get people off of social and onto that training. But even in that training, the goal is not to get them to book with you as a practitioner. It is a huge assumption for us to think that people go from hearing our brand to wanting to engage with us as practitioners as like the 1-2 punch. So we get them, they go onto that webinar. Some of them might be ready, and I'll tell you what the exact conversion numbers look like in a second. Some of them might be ready to jump on a call with you and learn about how you can work together. But the majority of them are going to move into the next phase of your marketing. This is the third phase of your marketing. And this is the nurture phase. This is where we provide them with ongoing value. This is where we build trust. This is where we start to speak to some of those subconscious blocks that they have around coming in to see us. And it's from the nurture phase where we convert people into our practice. So if we look at typical jumping off points, from just a social media strategy alone, we can expect 2 to 5% of people to come into our practice directly from social media. The rest will move on to step number 2. Like 90% will move on to step number 2, which is to come into your, what we call evergreen webinar or training or conversion event.
Your owned list, your owned versus your rented.
Right? We expect 10 to 15 people to convert directly into your practice from that event. Like directly from, I did my webinar, or like jump on a call, like come in and see me, I'll change my life. Of the people who view that, 10 to 15% will be ready right away. 60 to 80% are going to convert off of your nurturing. It is the most critical thing that we have in place as practitioners, is the capacity to have ongoing conversations with people, to invite them when they are ready, to book a call and learn how we can transform and change their lives. We get endlessly caught up in this notion of like, my fees are too high. That must be why people don't come in and see us. And I think it's led us all astray. It's actually a massive leap to ask someone to come into our office and have what is for most people the most intimate clinical experience they will ever have in their lives. It's not about the fees. It's about having to tell you that they had an abortion when they were 18, or that they drink half a bottle of vodka at night to fall asleep, or that they're not happy in their marriage, or that they picked the wrong career, or that they are like regretting having the third child. That is the thing that holds people back from coming in and sitting across from us in an intimate manner. It's not because we increased our fees from $195 to $226. It's because what we're asking people to engage in is so foreign to them that they need some warming up to you. So when we talk about things on a tactical level, I know, David, you're like, what's like the one tactic? And I've like completely gone over here.
It's perfect.
It's a broader strategy. And one, first of all, it's an acknowledgement that not everyone's going to be ready to walk through the door with us right away. And number 2, it's an understanding that the purpose of marketing is not to get everybody off of Instagram into our office, because you will be on Instagram forever banging your head against the wall if that's the only outcome you're looking at. Number 3, it's recognizing and honoring the fact that the average person is going to need a little bit more time to step into our systems of medicine, because we do not practice emergent care. We are not the people who swoop in when you slice your leg open and you need antibiotics and stitches. Everyone knows how to engage in healthcare in that scenario. This is an entirely new way of engaging in healthcare, which means we need a heightened level of strategy around how we move people through our door. And that's not manipulative. That's just actually honoring human nature. That's being sophisticated enough in the understanding of our care model to get that the average person doesn't know how to utilize us. And so when we get people who are like, I don't like marketing. I shouldn't have to market. It feels disingenuous to me to market. We're missing out on the opportunity to warm people up to what it is that we do. There's so much noise in the marketplace that if we're not strategic around how we place our messaging, if we don't honor the fact that this person has other things going on in their life besides their health and besides trying to figure out if we are the right person for them, we need to ensure that our marketing respects the fact that this person's got a lot going on, and that for them to come in and work with us may be a no-brainer, but it's going to take some time and it's going to take some key messaging in order to get them ready for that. So that was like a really big answer to those pieces, but it's a conversation that is tremendously missing in the landscape of our industry. And it's the difference between helping 100 people in your practice and 10,000 people in your practice is your willingness to look at the strategy around the marketing piece.
Totally. No, it's so well put. No, I was laughing because I feel like you looked at the price of my initial visit and how it crushed my soul to go from $195 to $226, and how I felt so terrible about it and still am hung up on it.
That's so funny. I just pulled these numbers.
I'm very hung up on that still. No, we went 195 to 220.
Stop it. Okay, so I didn't know that. I was not trying to, but you know what? The thing is that I share that, David, and I'm glad you were like, oh, okay, this is accurate. Because I just came off of a weekend with we had clinic owners fly in from across North America and Europe for a 3-day retreat just north of Toronto. And one of the big messaging pieces that we came back to was this notion of rates and just how much energy we put into thinking about, psychoanalyzing, feeling guilty about, planning, avoiding the conversation with respect to our rates. And one, I very, very clearly do not think it is the number one obstacle to people coming into our practice. But I do very clearly know it is the number one obstacle to us taking up more space as an industry and as a profession, because we cannot adequately fund our growth, our messaging, our marketing, our lobbying, because we are vastly undercharging for the level of expertise and risk that we hold in the marketplace.
Fair point. You started out by saying, from a leadership perspective, like if we look at kind of where I am and where a lot of the listeners are, supporting our associates. And you started with what are the fears,
Right.
around this ability to communicate your mission, vision, values. And then you went into step 2, which is, you really do need to be to completely understand the vibe of your ideal patient. Those are the first 2. And then you went through kind of all the patient context, or all the person context that you could have from, a simple get them into the newsletter and educate. We don't even have to call it marketing at that point. We can call it like, you have this skill. Let's educate 2 or 3 times before making any asks of anything. Did I summarize that okay?
Yeah, you absolutely did. And it depends on who we're talking to when we're discussing the marketing piece. Are we talking directly to associates? Are we talking to clinic owners? Because I think there's a real opportunity to kind of delineate the responsibility around both of these pieces. So, while I talk about with an associate, like, let's get really clear on who your ideal client is, I'm going to have the same conversation with the clinic owner. When we speak to clinic owners, we'll often be in a position where the clinic owner themselves doesn't understand what their clinic is about. And what I mean by that is we've really identified that there's sort of 3 categories of clinics in terms of, I don't even use the word niche because it's got so much baggage. I talk about our arena of authority. And our arena of authority is just really where we command authority in the marketplace. And it's tied to both our expertise and the outcome that we are able to deliver for our ideal client. But when it comes to clinics, there's sort of 3 types of clinics that we have sort of categorized. The first is what we will call a center of excellence. A center of excellence clinic would be like a women's health clinic. We cover everything from fertility to perimenopause to whatever, the full spectrum life cycle of women's health. This is a center of excellence. And we have practitioners under our roof who address all elements of this. So we might have an ND team, we might have psychotherapists, we might have pelvic floor physios, but we are a center of excellence for women's health, and we are known for that. The second type of clinic that we have identified are what we call specialty clinics. Specialty clinics mean that everybody under the roof is actually deploying the same methodology regardless of your credentials. A really great example of this is a clinic called Detox. They started in Ontario, but they're all in California, they're in New York, they're in Miami, they're all over the place. But Detox hires physiotherapists, athletic therapists, and chiropractors. They all deploy the same methodology. They do not care what your credentials are. So they have a similar system for every patient who comes through the door around how they rehabilitate and future-proof your body. All of their marketing is built around that piece. So they are a specialty clinic, and that gives them and affords them a certain type of scaling and a capacity to scale because they're not marketing to 20 different things. They market one thing over and over and over again. So that's a specialty clinic. And then we have a third type of clinic where its main value proposition to the market is its proximity to their ideal clients. So this might be a multidisciplinary clinic, but it's a multidisciplinary clinic in this cute little area of town where there's a whole bunch of their ideal client avatars. And their main value proposition is we provide excellent care, but we're literally embedded and adjacent to your life. And one of the things we have to make sure of with those types of clinics is that this doesn't just become a co-working space, right? That this is still very intentional. We still know exactly who our type of clients are. And for each of these scenarios, it is the clinic owner's responsibility to do 2 things. one, clearly explain who their ideal clients are and the type of clinic that they are. And again, if you're just a co-working space where like, we just rent a whole bunch of rooms to different people and some people run splits and some people pay rent, and that is a different business model. That is a co-working business model. And it's a challenging model for us to have as practitioners. So I want to draw attention to that piece. So our first responsibility as a clinic owner is to know what type of clinic we actually own and what model we have. The second thing I think clinic owners really need to understand and recognize is that once they've been able to declare that piece, that there are certain things they are good at and there's certain things their associates are good at. I know that I'll take some heat for this, but I don't think it should be the associate's job to build their practice within a clinic. And the reason I say that, listen, they should be going out there and they should have a brand and they should hustle and they should know what they're about. And in that case, their practice will be full and they won't know what to do with themselves.
Right.
But in my experience, most associates actually don't know how to do that, or it takes them some time to get there. And so you as the clinic owner have a tremendous amount of skin in the game. You're in a beautiful position to market the clinic as a whole. Where your associates should be held responsible and trained and supported is around retention of their patients. And retention and movement through a system of care, a transformational process of care that delivers predictable results for your ideal client. They are uniquely positioned to be measured against metrics related to retention. And if we were, one, retention gives better outcomes for patients. So like this is a really important piece, and that is the most important piece. But secondly, literally in a clinic, the profitability is tied to retention. So the most profitable elements of a clinic are tied to how long you have a patient continue to work with you, obviously for good reason. So it is a beautiful and very important component of the business model for associates to be responsible for the retention piece. Cash flow is driven by the acquisition of new clients, and that is an area where the clinic owners are uniquely positioned to be able to scale their marketing efforts, drive down that cost of acquisition, and all of those efforts are augmented by a clinician or associate who has a strong personal brand and a strong interest in marketing. But I do think it leads to disappointment on scale in our industry when we ask the associates to be an expert in marketing their own practices, because that's why they don't own a clinic in the first place.
For sure. Oh no, I don't think it's controversial. It's.
Thank you.
I don't think it is. However, no, I shouldn't say however. It's kind of exciting and good for them to help them get their message out. Because, okay, so 2 points here. First, you blew my mind with the different clinic models. You blew my mind because I feel like, from my perspective, the situation that I've built for myself and my team is a touch of all three, and I understand that's not ideal. And while you're talking, I'm trying to sort it out and figure it out, because I think you're making a really, really good point. We're in a situation here, and I think a lot of clinics are like this, where the owners have deep interests in something, yet we're nestled into these communities. Our clinics are, like, one is a community clinic, very obvious, been here for 15, 20 years. The other two are within fitness spaces. And so they have communities built around them, and we try to use our full scope of practice, yet the way we position ourselves in the market is sort of like a sort of like a specialty clinic.
Right.
So navigating that, I think, is something that will be so valuable for us, but a challenging exercise, I think.
Sure.
Maybe some advice for how to go through that exercise if clinic owners are in the same position as me. What would you say we should do kind of as a reflection point here to sort this out?
Yeah, I think that a lot of times what we think are big issues with our brand or our brand positioning are actually just a copy issue. Meaning, we actually just need to step back and talk about and look at what's the narrative that enables us to explain these outliers that we have within our ecosystem. So I'll use an example of one of the clinics who are in our mastermind, and this is a clinic in Toronto, very, very successful. It's called Flourish, founded by Dr. Ashlyn Lanigan. She's done a tremendous job of building her brand. They have two types of clinics. So their brand is called Flourish. They focus on women's health. They have a flagship location in Midtown Toronto that it's a center of excellence for women's health. So they do fertility, they do skin, they do like all the things that women want to talk about is what happens at their flagship location. They've got IV therapy, they've got that, da, 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 da. We know that this is like a center. But then they also have taken their concept for specialty clinics and they have embedded them inside of fertility clinics. And that is not a center of excellence for women's health. That is a specialty outpost related to fertility. And so sometimes just stopping and going, wait a second, how do we manage the perception of our brand? How do we take advantage of these two different things and ensure that we have got a cohesive narrative that makes this make sense for our ideal client? Sometimes that's all we need. So you might be in a position, David, where you're like, actually, I own two types of clinics. I've got my flagship location that is a center of excellence for X, Y, and Z. And now we have expanded and we have specialty clinics that are embedded in gyms and fitness centers where we focus primarily on this. And the specialty clinic piece will reinforce the success of the center of excellence, and the center of excellence lends authority to the specialty clinic pieces. But what you didn't do in being like, we're kind of all over the place, I don't know what we are, is you've removed the confusion on the part of the consumers to figure that out. You just clearly tell them, this is our flagship location and we focus on this. Here are our specialty clinics and we focus on this. Conveniently located in gyms, blah, 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 blah. So it's what looked like a lack of clarity was actually just a lack of copy.
Definitely. Well, and you've explained it so well. I don't feel like you know anything about me, but you have completely explained my business in a roundabout way. I love that. Thank you so much, Megan. It's really helpful. I think that will be helpful for a lot of people. You know, it's challenging for us, clinic owners to get the message out and to be able to explain kind of the impact that we would like to have to the community because we're busy seeing patients.
Exactly.
Because we're always out there just, seeing patients every single day, all day long, and love it. And so building this other side and stepping and working on the business is such a challenging thing for most clinic owners, I find. Getting that message out, communicating well, engaging the associates in the marketing was the second piece that we had chatted about that I wanted to talk about a little bit. But now I think it's more appropriate for us to turn to that balance between working in and on the business, seeing patients and being the kind of foundational couple of clinicians as part of a group of clinics, but having some really excellent associates, like we have ideal associates. We were so fortunate to have the team that we have.
Right.
How do clinic owners strike that balance? And do you have any ideas or recommendations for how to structure a week for a clinic owner like us?
This may come as a surprise, but I have some thoughts on this. Shocking. So I think it's important for us to acknowledge that as a clinic owner, you have two jobs. And the good news of having two jobs is you actually have two streams of income. And I really want to acknowledge this piece because it's actually really important to understanding the scale piece. When you own the clinic, one of the traps we fall into and why we don't create space and don't get space to work on the business is because there is a shockingly large number of clinics. And this is not a jab at it. It is just like we just got to coach around it. And the fee thing comes into it. It's a shocking number of clinics that are supported almost exclusively by the actions of the clinic owner themselves. So if we were to remove the patient transaction piece of the clinic owner's time, the clinic wouldn't sustain itself. And I open with this because we can't have a fruitful conversation around how we delineate our time during the week if what people are secretly thinking behind the scenes is, I can't pay my bills and my overhead if I'm not seeing patients 30 hours a week, or 3/4 of my time is spent seeing patients, or 40 hours a week is spent seeing patients, and then I manage the clinic between 5 a.m. and 6 a.m. or in the evenings or on Saturdays. So I want to acknowledge that component first, because it's one of the things in our industry that's a really important piece for us to look at when we're looking at where should we be setting fees. It's not sustainable for us to have clinics that house the deployment of care that are actually not sustainable without practitioners, the owner, giving up 100% of their billable proceeds to support the overhead of the practice. That is not sustainable. We need to talk about it as an industry. So as associations get involved in sharing what they think people should be charging, I feel as though no one has actually modeled that piece out. So if we were to look at that, let's start there in terms of those numbers. As the clinic owner, you should be getting paid for your role in the ownership of the clinic, and it should generally be a reflection of your profits within your practice. As a practitioner in your own practice, you should be receiving the same 40 or the same 60% in terms of personal income that your other associates are accessing. And I want to look at that because when we start to run those numbers, it starts to determine what things need to look at, both in terms of fee structures, but also in terms of time allocation. So I wanted to set a standard and a benchmark for everyone around what those pieces look like. So for you as the clinic owner, 40% of your billings should go into supporting the overhead of the clinic, but not more. And so if we are at a position where more than 50% of your billings are going into supporting the clinic, then we are not yet at a position where we can talk about how we're delineating time. You are in straight up hustle mode, and you are going to be building your clinic in your free time because your patient time is still too entrenched in managing the overhead of the practice. So I just want to acknowledge that. And everyone's going to go through that phase. It's not like it's everyone will move through it. The trick is ensuring you don't sit in it forever. So let's move on from that. Let's move on from that piece, because the benchmark I want people sitting at is that really not more than 40% of your billings are going towards supporting the overhead of the clinic. If we are going to scale your clinic, if we are going to open more than one location, or if we're going to sell it, no more than 25% of revenue can be coming from the clinic owner themselves. So this is a really important delineation. And I know a lot of people are going to go, oh my gosh, like how do I bridge that gap? And that's a totally separate conversation, but we can have it. But that enables us to start to look at how we sort of structure out your week. So for the average clinic owner, if they're going to grow their practice and really build out these systems and position their clinic for them as entrepreneurs, as something that is providing them with leveraged income, which is what your clinic should be doing for you, then you really, of your working week, cannot be seeing patients for more than 50% of your working time. There should be an absolute line in the sand. Now, how do we make these numbers work? There's one thing that you gain access to as a clinic owner that's really important for you to leverage. And that is, as the clinic owner, you can automatically charge more than all of your associates, irrespective of demand, because you command a different layer of authority. It's one of the privileges of owning the clinic is that you get to have a different fee structure. And I highly recommend that you engage in that, because it's going to enable you to cut back on your time sooner without it compromising what happens financially. So anyone who's like, how do I do it? You just simply charge more for your time, because your time is actually worth more, because your opportunity cost is higher in terms of the overarching nature of the business. So that is one key piece that we need to be able to look at. The second, from a leadership perspective, before I can pull you out of more clinic time, we need to be willing to have a fruitful conversation around what our associates should be charging for their work. So this is the second layer. And I don't mean to keep coming back to fees, but this is the reality, is most people say, I can't spend more time building out my clinic because I've got to support it. But the reason you've got to support it is because you have a lack of capital. And the reason you have a lack of capital is because we're not charging enough for the amount of risk and the level of service that we deliver to the marketplace. So it always comes back to this piece. If you are stuck in a model where you're like, I can't afford to take more time away to work on my business, you aren't charging enough for what we do, and we don't have enough revenue coming in from your associates. One of the easiest ways to ensure that we have adequate associate revenue coming in is making sure that their fees are on par with where they need to be to support your clinic. You need to know those numbers as a clinic owner. But secondly, we have to be willing to have the challenging conversation. So if we have an associate who's like, I feel so badly, I just can't increase my rates, we need to be able to separate the conversation around their emotional relationship to charging money for their service and what we have to charge to be able to support the overhead of a business. These are really important, critical conversations to building out sustainable clinics. And we could keep going deeper. And I know I probably haven't even answered your initial question, David, but like, if we are going to start to talk about like what the line should be in terms of pulling ourselves off of practice, then we absolutely have to talk about the fee piece.
Oh my God. I even forget what the question is because I'm so engaged,
I know, me
because
too.
it's so relevant, right? Like
Right.
we were talking about balance for clinic owners and between actually seeing patients and working on the business. But you frame it really, really well, because these are foundational pieces that a lot of clinic owners like literally just don't know that these are foundational pieces that we need to actually be considering. So you mentioned that you would go deeper. Where would you go next? Is there a next element like in this step-by-step process for finding balance for clinic owners? So I'm feeling really good right now because you've highlighted a zillion things that we don't do or even think about because we're so new and kind of immature from this kind of place. We're still clinicians, right?
Right.
Just with a lot of really cool associates who are better than me at a lot of things, by the way. So the fee structure thing does give me a little bit of stress because they're really good, top of their class clinicians. And so, you know, a lot of it kind of comes back to that fear, I think, that we talked about initially, and the emotional piece around it, being like the leader and, you know, trying to support your team really efficiently. But you've done a great job. Obviously, I could continue because I'm so passionate about this, but I have some other questions if you don't mind. We can make it a little bit of a turn. We should talk about business models because you probably get the vibe. We're on one-on-one still. Pretend it's the year 2000. And we're going to be here for a while. But we've been considering other business models, that's for sure. And kind of opening it up to our patient population and talking about how much value we could provide in a group setting, for example, or the educational pieces. A lot of us really like to teach here. And so we're, you know, considering that route. But could you highlight a few of the kind of typical business models that are different than one-on-one that clinics around North America will use?
Yeah, for sure. I want to back up before we even step into that and like just outline a few different concepts. So one, different business models get unlocked when we hit different milestones in our business. So for example, you mentioned a group program. Just because we can conceive of a business model doesn't mean we get to put it out to our audience. And so I want to acknowledge that piece. Group programs are amazing and they're transformative. And like I said, we just came out of a retreat with 20 clinic owners and we're all just like, oh my gosh, groups are amazing. Like, why would we ever go back? But we can run groups and we can run these types of retreats because we have demand. If you do not have demand, it is really hard to step out of the gate saying, I have a group program. Because most people will say, I don't care, I want you one-on-one. So group programming is a privilege that you unlock as a consequence of building demand for your one-on-one model. So as a primary out the door model, one-on-one is a place where our first developmental milestone in our business should be to fill our one-on-one practice. And I want to even differentiate just a one-on-one practice in terms of a little bit more nuance. We can do one-on-one transactional care. You come in for your intake. We send you home with your diet diary. We like change your diet. We give you supplements. You tell me how you feel. I change them again. I change them again. I change them again. That model of care, although still highly pervasive, is obsolete as of the beginning of this year. And I'll tell you why in a second. The second way we can deploy care is transformational care, where we go, here's the outcome I deliver. And here are the steps and process and journey I take you through to get to that outcome. And it sounds different. It is not the same thing. So delivering a transformation means we understand and are intentional about each of the different steps, that we talk the language of outcome. That is it's different than promising an outcome, but we talk the language of outcome because we know what our ideal client is looking for. We layer in education. That could be deployed through a membership model. It could get deployed through a group model. It could get deployed through an online model. It could get deployed through an AI model. All of those are models that could deliver transformational care. But at its forefront, when I said I wanted to back up, I want to differentiate transactional from transformational. So leading into this workshop, I asked ChatGPT, given the regulatory structure of a jurisdiction such as Ontario or BC, talk to me about the viability and lifespan of a transactional naturopathic model, and when we may see an AI platform such as ChatGPT actually providing care and replacing the care of naturopathic doctors. I was like, how long until this happens? And it said, it's already done.
Yeah.
It is more cost effective for the average person to open ChatGPT and ask what supplements I should be on and what diet I should take and coach me weekly on the habits to have in place to lose my 10 pounds than it is to go and see a naturopathic doctor in a highly regulated jurisdiction. Now, before everyone freaks out and jumps off of the platform, it went on to say the most protective mechanism against what AI can currently do is to transition from delivering transactional to transformational care. AI cannot deliver the transformation with the level of nuance and sophistication that a practitioner can. And if there's one thing everyone's going to take away from this, it is like really hearing that piece. So when we talk about innovative models, first and foremost, the foundation of it needs to be transformational. Once we're like, okay, great, I can deliver a transformational process. This is great. I have the language to talk to patients about this is going to take us 8 months. If you have sufficient demand for your brand, now there's all sorts of ways we can do it. So some of the most innovative models in which that is happening, definitely group programming, absolutely concierge models where people are paying a monthly fee to be able to access and have questions answered by practitioners. People want to talk to real people. I'm not suggesting that people would rather talk to an AI bot than humans. Some would, but like by and large, we want to sit across from a human with a capacity to empathize and understand who's been there before. But my main point here is that we need to start to shift our language away from like, here's 4 or 5 visits and then like, call me if you need me, to like, here's a transformational process where we are going to change the outcome of your health and you're never going to have to need me again. Or we're going to put you on a growth plateau that the way you need me is going to shift and transition forever.
Right.
So when we I know you jump in, I know you have a question because I'm watching your face on the backside of that, but those two concepts, transformational care and leveraging demand as a gatekeeper to introducing innovative models, are 2 very foundational pieces that have to be part of this conversation.
Definitely. Leveraging demand might be the biggest kind of wake up call for a lot of people. Like for myself, just maybe on the first kind of go, the demand wasn't high enough to make it right on the group side. I love to teach and I do lots of teaching, but in order to make it a group kind of session, I think the transformational model, both in the one-on-one setting, but especially in a group setting, makes a lot of sense. I talked to a practitioner recently who has this kind of group journey that they go on, right, from here to there, but complex conditions, of course, and not everyone has the same condition, but the journey makes sense,
Right.
Given the way the conditions are for them. So thought that was cool. So I guess that transformational model can be used in both places. And you also mentioned this kind of interweaving and having group sessions as part of the individual transformative or transformational model, which might be quite relevant to a lot of practitioners as well. You know, you take a patient on this journey from here to there and have opportunities for them to attend educational sessions, for example, that are kind of part of that built-in journey, but those can be within a group, for example. Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure. And so, you know, I talk a lot about like the patient journey. So I talked about it from a marketing perspective, but once someone's in our world and they go, oh my gosh, David's amazing. I want to access something from him. We go through these like developmental milestones in terms of health. So I know as practitioners, sometimes we're like, oh, Dr. Google, like they looked it all up themselves. It's so annoying. But I think this is a really powerful developmental milestone for the average consumer with respect to health. If they want to buy a program or they want to buy access to your AI chatbot related to their IBS, I don't know. This is really exciting to me because it means they have a curiosity around moving forward. It means they trust your brand. They just might not be ready to come into your office yet. They might not understand why they need to make that level of investment or engage in that level of clinical intimacy, but they are interested in giving it a go on their own. And I think that's really valuable. So that is a whole huge cohort of people who are interested in purchasing things other than one-on-one care so they can do it on their own. And I want to acknowledge that because that is an opportunity for us with our expertise. Yes, Absolutely. People will want one-on-one care from us. And so do they move from that DIY to realizing, oh shoot, I need a little bit more help here. And so they're like, what is the deeper transformational journey? And that's what we call it. It's a different quadrant, but we could almost draw a triangle. And at the top of that is one-on-one care. Below that is associate care. So if you have a process, David, to see you costs X, Y, and Z, and your time is limited because you're a big deal clinic owner and you heard me speak and you don't spend more than 10 hours a week in practice. And so it's hard to get in to see you. but you've taught your system, your transformational system, to associates. So next down in that triangle, and more leverage for you as a clinic owner, is the team of associates who deploy your model of care. And you are still in there, you still mentor them, but you're not seeing those patients. And then below that, in terms of demand, is a group program. All of this is the transformational experience with patients. But what happens is once patients get well, as an industry, we've traditionally done this thing where we say to them, you know what, it's been such a pleasure and I'm so glad you got this outcome and it's great, Meghan, like, best of luck, give us a call if you need anything. And off I go to my old life and my old pattern in the grocery store and my boss I never liked in the first place and my marriage that, was kind of the same and my kids that are still frustrating. And so I retreat to and resort back to the habits that got me into that problem in the first place. And lo and behold, 18 months later, they call back and they're like, hi, David, it's Meghan again. Can we start the process again? It's all coming back. Why? Because nothing changed. So one of the things and one of the massive opportunities for any practitioner out there is to recognize when we get patients to the outcome that they were looking for, when we got them, quote unquote, well, now we have an opportunity to build off of that, right? And I call this the growth phase. None of us got healthy and then we're like, I'm done. No, I've got like red lights and Pelotons and cold plunges and saunas and whoops and devices like all over my body because this is an ongoing area of growth for me. And I want to have advice. I want to have strategy input as I continue to evolve. It's like someone learns to play golf. They're not done. They're forever meeting with golf pros. They're forever going to the driving range. They're forever buying the paraphernalia. Health is no different. There's an opportunity for mastery. So there's a whole other area of our practices, a whole other offering that once people get well, we have historically not spoken about at all. But I think there's a massive market for people who already understand how our systems of care work to take them to a whole new level of health. And not just take them to a whole new level of health, but to make them ambassadors for these systems of care and lifestyle. So there's so much opportunity for naturopathic medicine and functional medicine and preventative health care, but it will require us as practitioners to be brave enough to step away from the way it has always been done and into this whole huge frontier of possibility.
Wow. Meghan, I've never taken so many notes in an episode. I've never had so many epiphanies. I've never had someone say out loud the things I was thinking so much during an hour session. I'm so grateful to have the opportunity to speak with you, and I can't wait to review this and watch it over and take more notes and establish some of the foundational pieces that you've mentioned here today. You gave away the goods, my friend.
Oh, my pleasure. My pleasure.
Where can our clinicians learn more about you?
Yeah, two things. So I shared with you, we have a profitable clinic checklist. So I think we'll make that available in the show notes. It's just like a really great way of quickly being like, oh gosh, here's some opportunities for me. And then the two best ways to follow along with the work that we are doing is on Instagram. So Clinician Business Labs has a great account with tons of amazing information. That's my company. And then I'm personally very active on Instagram as well. And my handle is just Dr. Meghan Walker, Meghan with an H.
Incredible. Very nice to meet you. I look forward to speaking again. Thanks so much for coming on Personalized.
Oh, my pleasure.
Talk again soon.
Thanks for joining us for today's discussion. What about today's podcast resonated with you? Be sure to tag at Dr. David Dizer and at Get Vitamin Lab. If you're learning from and enjoying this podcast, please let us know by subscribing to our YouTube channel and follow the show on Spotify and Apple. And don't forget to leave us a review. It's the best way to support our podcast, and it helps others find us. To learn more or book a demo to explore what personalization could do for your practice, please go to www.getvitaminlab.com/personalized.